This is Jonathan Lane from Fan Film Factor, and I first heard of Vance Major shortly after the fan film guidelines came out in 2016. It was June 23rd. The fan film community was up in arms. We were panicking. These guidelines are going to destroy Star Trek fan films as we know them. And 2 weeks later, a fan film called Pen Pals was the first one to be released after the guidelines. And it was just a short, minute-long subspace message from Chief Engineer Eric Menard of the USS Valiant. And he'd shot it on his camera phone. He was on the Starbase studio sets in Oklahoma City. And they actually just were taking a break from filming, I believe it was Melbourne, fan series. And Vance said, just do this really quick, and he did. And a couple of months later, he came out with Pen Pals 2, which had also been filmed at the same shoot, which was the response from the other engineer he was sending the subspace message to. And that was the beginning of what has turned into 125, 30, I don't know, I've lost count, fan films that Vance has done. And honestly, the man has changed Star Trek fan films for the better, forever. And the way he's done this is not by making a spectacular, dazzling, high-quality, high-budget fan film extravaganza, but rather by shooting on a cell phone with cords in the background and costumes that don't fit and people who aren't necessarily actors and lighting that isn't necessarily good and sound that you can't really hear. I mean, to criticize Vance's fan films means you don't get it. Vance gets it. The whole idea of a Star Trek fan film is the fan wants to make the film. We love Star Trek so much that we want to honor it. We want to play in the sandbox. And what Vance did at a time when so many Star Trek fan films were just trying to one-up each other, and we had the $10,000 and $20,000 fan films, and we had the $100,000 fan films. We were going to get $1 million fan film. And Vance is making fan films that he's basically funding with the money he finds in the cushions of his sofa, if that. So what Vance did as he created this amazing panorama, this tapestry of different stories about this character of Eric Menard, was he said to fans who wanted to make fan films, you don't need all that. You don't need 10 or 20 or 40 or $100,000. You don't need elaborate sets. And you don't need amazing costumes or incredible actors. You got a cell phone? Make a fan film. Just do it. He's sort of the Nike of Star Trek fan films. And as the reality of the guidelines set in, that no, these weren't going to destroy Star Trek fan films, Vance was leading the parade. He was making these low-budget Menard fan films, and some of them were filmed on the bridge set at Starbase Studios and some of the other sets they had at the time, and some of them were just filmed in his house or on a road in the middle of Kansas, on a bridge. And I'm not talking about the TOS bridge, I'm talking an actual bridge with a road next to it. If there was a car in the background or, the wind got too loud, he didn't care, and the fact is that other fans saw this, Vance was unapologetic for this. He said, look, if you don't want to watch it, I'm not necessarily making it for you. I'm making it for me. And if you want to see what I made and join me in this, go right ahead. So other fans were like, well, if he can do it, then yeah, so can I. And that's how Vance changed fan films forever, because he opened it up and said, it's okay to have a fan film that doesn't look like Star Trek Continues or New Voyages or Axanar or Renegades. Do what you want because you love it. I love it. Let's just have some fun. I find the character of Eric Menard to be really fascinating. And I realize that most of the time we've seen Eric has been in these basically Zoom calls with other people, because a lot of the fan films that Vance has made have been, especially during COVID, have basically just been subspace calls, Zoom calls between people. And if you're watching the Menard series, or the CONSTAR Chronicles, or CONSTAR Continues, and CONSTAR Completed, and CONSTAR Concluded, all the other stuff, if you're watching that for hardcore action, you will find it. There are some definite action episodes out there. But for the most part, they're quiet, because that's the way Vance is. And the character of Eric Menard is a window into Vance Major. And that's really what I find so fascinating. So when Vance first started releasing Menard films, this was before CONSTAR even existed, he jumped around in the timeline of Menard, because the character of Menard was fascinating in that he was long-lived because he found this thing called the Valhalla Stone, which just extended his life. He didn't age, but that was just an excuse for Vance to be able to wear, TNG outfits and TOS outfits and Cage Era outfits, and basically every, costume that you could possibly find. So, Menard started in the Pike era as an engineer, became the chief engineer of the Valiant, ultimately became the captain of the CONSTAR. And throughout this, he's going from the 23rd century to the 24th century, and even beyond that. So we get to watch a character aging, growing, learning, developing, so that so that the Menard of the 24th century is different than the Menard of the 23rd century. And there's been some tragedy that he's learned from, and there's been some dark times, and there's also a certain lightness that comes in later in his life. And Vance made these films completely out of order. So it's not like, you got all the 23rd century stuff, and then you get all the 24th century stuff, and then the 25th century stuff. No, he jumped around. So if you're watching these fan films, you kind of have to do a little mental concentration. You have to pay attention to figure out what Menard's life is like because of all of this. And that was what made this truly unique. And, no other fan film maker or character has had this much of their life shared with people. But the life itself is also interesting, because if you know Vance, you can see the connections between him and Eric Menard. For example, both of them were abused as children by a father who was not very loving and kind of unstable, and not somebody that you really would want as a dad. But at the same point in time, Vance didn't have a choice in that matter. So a lot of who he is based on this man who was his father. Well, same thing with Eric Menard. And ultimately, Vance went on to have a son of his own, a wonderful boy named Royce. And Vance said, I'm not going to be the father to Royce that my father was to me. And he tries so hard. He's the most wonderful dad. And so Menard also ends up with a son, Eobard. And in some cases, that son is played by Royce. You get to watch Royce grow up, and if you watch enough of Vance's fan films. And so you get to see that connection, and you get to see his evolving relationship with a lot of the members of the fan film community through Eric Menard's evolving relationship with people from different fan series. I used to joke in the beginning that Vance was the Where's Waldo of Star Trek fan films, because he would always be willing to help people make their fan films, and occasionally you'd see him in an episode, either in front of the camera or behind the camera. And eventually, Vance got to the point where he would invite people from the fan community to be in his fan films. So, you had George Cyan of Starship Antilles, and you had Nick Cook of Intrepid, and Robin Hirt of Dark Armada. Those guys were in Europe. And you had Jose Cepeda of Nature's Hunger, Josh Irwin of the Avalon Universe, even Alec Peters from Axonar. These people have all, and others, including me, have made cameo appearances in Vance's fan films. And, basically, you film it yourself. I mean, Vance called me once on a Thursday night. He said, look, I need you to do this quick scene. It's just like these, 3 sentences. But I need it as fast as you can do it. Do you have a Deep Space Nine uniform? And I was like, okay, how fast do you need? He said, well, I'm getting you by tomorrow morning. Okay. So I filmed it for him. I filmed it on a chair in front of my bathroom door. And then I gave it to Vance the next morning, and it appeared in an episode about the Phantom. And the Phantom is also an interesting character because that's also Menard. That's the dark Menard. That's the Menard from the Mirror Universe, who's not quite all there. But Vance knows he has a dark side of him. I mean, you can't have grown up with a father like his without really facing that dark part of yourself and knowing it's there. And so in the CONSTAR series, Menard literally faces off against his doppelganger. But that's really Vance's almost daily struggles with, his own demons, which he has overcome, obviously, because he's a great guy. And so it's just this really amazing character, So once again, if you're watching Menard and CONSTAR stories because you want to see action or really amazing sci-fi series or whatever, no, you're not typically going to get that. I mean, a lot of the stories are okay, but it's really the concept of watching this one man, this one character, and who he interacts with. And a lot of the times the people that he interacts with themselves get to develop over the course of this really, really long series. So in that way, this is truly unique, truly amazing in the world of fan films. And honestly, I have to say, Vance, thank you for giving us Eric Menard. He's a just really fun character to follow and watch, and learn about, and root for. And I'm really happy that you've completed the CONSTAR and the Menard saga after all this time. I consider Vance Major to be a close friend of mine. We have those calls on the phone that last like 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. We don't even experience the time going by. Those calls will start at like 11 or 11 p.m., 11:30 p.m. my time, because that's 1:30 a.m. In Kansas, which is where Vance is working his overnight shift. So that's sort of the middle of his workday. And he takes a little break and we chat. We get his paperwork while we're chatting. And we talk about Star Trek. We talk about Star Trek fan films. We talk about Star Trek fan film makers, the people we like, the people who drive us crazy, the latest stuff that's going on. We talk about being dads and our kids, our sons who we love so much. And over the years, and my God, it's been like, 6 or 7 years that we've been such good friends. Vance and I have really bonded as fans and friends and a support system for each other. So, I've watched a lot of Vance's evolution and maturity as a fan filmmaker along the way, along those years. And what's amazing is the connection that Vance has built among people in the fan community. He acts in many ways as a nexus between fan filmmakers. It used to be that a lot of people would call up Vance and ask him for help with this or that, especially when he was involved with Starbase Studios in Oklahoma. If they needed him to come to the set, be happy to make the drive from Kansas, which was, probably like 4 or 5 hours each way. So you'd see him in a number of Star Trek fan films that were not necessarily, the Menard fan films, but you would see Menard. And then as he went forward with the CONSTAR Chronicles, he began to reach out to other members of the Star Trek fan film community and inviting them to be in his fan films. And, even if you were just on a screen, doing a subspace Zoom call with him for, 2 minutes of screen time, it was fun. You got to be in another fan film and just play in the sandbox. And that was all that Vance ever really wanted. He was just saying, hey, would you like to be in my fan film? And most people said, yeah, sure. He didn't have very high standards. Saying, take your camera phone, whatever. You don't even need a good microphone. Just, speak your lines, and do you have a costume to wear? Wear your uniform, and it doesn't matter if you're sitting in your living room or your bedroom, or if you've got a cool green screen and you want to put something behind it. Whatever you want to do. He was always fine with it, because it was never about making the film look realistic. It was simply about the lines that were being spoken and the stories that were being told. And so ultimately, Vance opened up his filmmaking, his CONSTAR Chronicles, and CONSTAR Continues, and CONSTAR Completed and Concludes, to other filmmakers to write and direct episodes, produce episodes. He's like, look, I don't have to do everything. I don't have that ego. If you want to write an episode, hey, if it's a good story, let's do it. If you want to direct an episode, you want to edit, whatever you want to do. He was always open to bringing people in and giving that opportunity. And because Vance didn't have very high standards, you leave a cord in the back and you can see it, who cares? It was a wonderful on-ramp for filmmakers to come in and to just have some fun, get a Star Trek fan film credit under your belt. So in a lot of ways, Vance and his CONSTAR series was, just a training ground, sort of an academy, a Starfleet academy for young fan filmmakers, and even some old fan filmmakers who, were just new to fan filmmaking, to just try stuff out, learn how to do stuff. Because, that's all we really want to do. Most Star Trek fan filmmakers aren't looking for a career in this. We want to play. We want to play in the sandbox. And, Vance was there with all the toys saying, go ahead. Here's the sandbox. Here's the toys. Have some fun. So as Vance Major comes to the end of his Star Trek fan filmmaking career, I know he's retired before and he's come back, but I'm told by Vance that, no, this time it's for real. I'm hanging it all up. I'm going to concentrate on being a dad and spending more time with my family, and that's fine. You know what, Vance, you've earned it. I mean, it's sort of like Tom Brady, although I'm not really a Tom Brady fan, but I understand that, this man has been playing football for 140 years, and he's set records that are probably never going to be matched again, let alone, broken by other quarterbacks, unless those quarterbacks end up wanting to, play football into their 60s or whatever, because he's won so many Super Bowls and he's thrown so many passes and he's played so many games. And that's sort of like Vance, he's made 125, 130 fan films. Who does that? Vance does that. And he's told all these amazing stories. He's united all of these fan filmmakers in crossovers and cameo appearances. And, in addition to that is his Pizza Roll Diaries, where he interviewed fan filmmakers. That was so much fun. And he touched the fan film community. He inspired the fan film community. He did so much more than just make a fan series. that that is just such a special thing that I want to take a moment to just say thank you, Vance. Thank you for everything you've done, not just for yourself and your fan series, but for the entire community. Thank you. Live long and prosper.
My entire life, I was shown examples of what not to be, how not to be. Then this little boy came into my life, and everything changed. The best thing in my world is him. And no matter what happens, I will always protect him. Now we stand as Starfleet officers. I'm a dad. That's my job.